Well, Tim, can you believe it? We have high school football this week.
I know, it's Football Friday, and it doesn't look like it's going to be too hot. You know, I was seeing the forecast last week, and I thought it was going to be another 90-degree opening Friday, which always doesn't feel like opening Friday when it's 90-plus degrees, but maybe not so hot this Friday, so probably good for the players and the fans alike.
Well, we are here on Varsity360 to kick off the high school football season in a way we do each year with, you're going to tell me who you think is the favorite to win each of the four local leagues, and I'm going to come back with four other teams that I think could contend. But first of all, thank you for tuning in for another season here. We're coming to you from the First Pacific Financial Studio in downtown Vancouver. Thanks to them for supporting the show and supporting high school sports and the community at large. But yeah, like you said, it's been a long time coming, and we've been looking forward to this for the entire summer, basically.
Well, yeah, it's so we didn't have the special section this year for the first time in about 10 years. So in the special section, we would have predictions.
Yes.
So that we didn't have that this year. So this is our opportunity to get those predictions out and figure out just how wrong we are in November.
Yeah, we always get surprised multiple times every year, but let's get right to it. Let's get right to it with the 4A Greater St. Helens League. Tim, who is the favorite this season in the 4A GSHL?
All right, so the 4A Greater St. Helens League, last year there was this gap, right? You had Camas, you had Skyview, and then a big gap, and then Union and Battleground. Skyview, Camas won to the quarterfinals, won all the way to the championship game. So I think this year that gap's going to be a little bit narrower, but not necessarily going to have anyone overtake anyone. So I still think it's still Camas and Skyview. And even though both teams lost a lot of seniors and are filling a lot of holes this year, I just kind of feel what Camas has coming back and the new additions they have put themselves in a better position to repeat yet again. This would be like 6 in a row if they were to do it, if you discount the COVID season. They still have a good core of players back, and they had a lot of players who used that deep run last year to get more practice time, more experience. And I just think the paper makers are ready to make another run.
Well, they seem like they always reload out there in Camas, and that certainly is the case. I think there are some questions that will be answered early in the season, namely at the quarterback position. I'm very eager to see the transfer from Idaho, Tyson Ruggiero, come in and see how Coach Adam Matheson uses him and some of those other new arrivals in that offense.
Yeah, I think it's set up pretty well for them to again do good. They get a little bit of a break in week one. Last year, remember, they played Roosevelt in week one, and it was a tough game, defensive game. Roosevelt was stacked, and they made a deep run in the playoffs. But then we later found out that Roosevelt kind of played fast and loose with some of the rules.
Yep.
And they kind of got hammered with penalties from the WIA, so the coach is suspended, and assistant coaches suspended. I think the principals got suspensions in there. And then a whole bunch of players said they left the program, and so there was a lot of flux about what exactly is going to happen when they play Roosevelt in week one. And even Coach Adam Matheson told me, he's like, yeah, we don't really know what we're going to see when we get there. And
probably a shell of what they were last year.
And Camas got some other offers for week one games. It's like, hey, we have week one and we're looking for a game. But Coach Matheson was like, we made a commitment. I want to stick with it. So they're planning to head up on Saturday up to Seattle. So they might get a little bit of a warm-up before they head into the rest of their league schedule. But it's still a tough schedule, and it should probably prep them very well for the league play in October.
I agree with you that Camas is the favorite in this league. I do disagree slightly on who their number one contender is going to be. Now, Skyview, obviously, they've been kind of in that prime contender spot the last few years for good reason. They also lost a lot of seniors from last year, but I'm looking at Union. I think Union could make a jump. It's the second year of Coach Steve Pine's tenure there. You always, I think, see some of these teams make a jump in a coach's second year, and their strength they bring back mostly is on the offensive line. And when you have an offensive line that's cohesive, it really really can open things up for the quarterback, for the running game. You have an experienced senior in Blake McDonald as quarterback. So I'm tagging Union to make a jump this year.
Yeah, I think Union's a team to definitely keep an eye on this year. I think, again, the second year with Steve Pine, and again, I think he's building the program from the line out. He's kind of reinforcing the front line offense and defense, and I think that's how you build a successful program. So it'd be interesting that they still have some questions and some holes in some of the skill positions as they enter the season. So it's kind of see how they kind of work through those as the season progresses. But yeah, I'm interested in taking a look at what the Titans have going.
Because they were 2-6 last year, and you think a coaching staff led by someone of state championship caliber like Steve Pine in Oregon, that's going to be an exception rather than the rule. And you could definitely see, learning a new system, maybe thin at a bunch of different positions, but I got to feel that it's going to be an upward trajectory for the Titans year after year, the longer that coaching staff is in place.
Yeah, I think you could be right there. I'm looking forward to seeing what they bring.
All right, let's move to the 3A Greater St. Helens League. And in fact, it's a good segue because I'm going to see Union on Friday out at Mackenzie against a team that I think you're gonna tout here as being a favorite in the 3A Greater St. Helens League. Who's your favorite in the 3A GSHL?
Yeah, last year I went to Week 1, Union and Evergreen, and at that point, Union and Evergreen, and the times they had played, Union had never lost to Evergreen, and so Evergreen winning last year, I think it was 18-0. First time breaking through and winning, and really kind of set them on their path to go off and win their first league title in 15 years or something like that. I think it's Evergreens again. I think, the one thing last year when I was in this chair trying to do the same thing and picked Evergreen, the one question was, they got a freshman quarterback, what is that going to look like? And it ended up looking pretty good. I think early in the season, Jaden Baum kind of played a little bit like a freshman quarterback here and there, but by the end of the year, they got things rolling pretty well and captured the league title. This year he comes back even more seasoned, even more fit, and he's got weapons in the receiving game, especially with Terrence Sarion. And they have other returning pieces there that just make Evergreen the favorite in the 3A Greater St. Helens League.
Yeah, I was impressed during Meg's summer project, the Dog Days project video series that was sort of embedded with Evergreen, Hawkinson, and La Center for the offseason. By the way, plug, go check that out on the 360 Preps YouTube channel. We have all 6 of the episodes live there. Check it out to get primed up for the 2025 football season. But Evergreen just looks like they are a more cohesive, well-oiled machine this year. You talk about Jaden Baum with, entering his second year, starting as a sophomore, and Terrence Sarion and Darren Schmidt, 2 Division I talents. Sarion going to BYU and Schmidt to Arizona. Those weapons, that's about as good as you find anywhere in the county.
Yeah, so I just think they're set up. I think they've got that experience from last year. They've got the confidence going, and it'll set them up well as they head on. They do have some tough non-league games that'll get them squared up for as they move in through the September. I think they got to host Puyallup in week 2, and then they got this team from Texas coming in week 4, and so that will be a really interesting game situation to come up.
So I don't disagree with you on picking Evergreen to win the 3A Greater St. Helens League. I think that's the safe bet, but I will tout who I think is going to be a dark horse contender who might not be far behind the Plainsmen, and that's the Prairie Falcons, another team that is looking to take a big jump in second year of a new head coach, Junior Miller. Prairie's got experience all over the skill positions. They have a returning quarterback and Devin Vigu. I think that's how you say it. Viju. Devin Viju. I'm sorry, Devin. But Devin Viju is one of the more experienced signal callers in the area and probably one of the most dangerous dual threat quarterbacks in the area. Had over 600 yards of rushing last year, but then he's got 2 really good receivers in Tommy Vick and Alex Blakesley, and a guy I think who's going to turn some heads, just looks the role of a hard-nosed, physical guy in Spud Merritt. They're going to, he played on the defensive line last year, 4-year starter on varsity. He's going to move to linebacker. So you're going to have basically a 235-pound linebacker wrecking things on the defense. And then they're going to use him kind of as an H-back, which, those of you who don't know the ins and outs of football, it's kind of a hybrid between a fullback and a tight end. So I'm really excited to see what Prairie does this year in the second year under Junior Miller. And when I went out to Prairie's practice and talked to him, he thinks this team could be as good as the 2019 Prairie team. Also, second-year coach that year under Mike Peck. Junior Miller was an assistant on that team. So he knows he can see the similarities firsthand. That 2019 team made it to the state playoffs, kind of shocked the area and won the 3A Greater St. Helens League. Could a repeat be in store for the Falcons? We'll see, but they certainly have the experience and the personnel to, I think, give Evergreen a pretty good run.
Yeah, it's kind of funny looking back at the Falcons. I think they went 5-4 last year. But the first month was like a roller coaster. Like they opened week 1 against Richfield and they got running clocked by Richfield. But then they come back week 2 and they win a thriller with Battleground. I think it was week 2 in Battleground. And then they went down to Dallas, Oregon, I think like week 3, week 4, and it was like very ugly. So it was like they took a while to kind of figure things out, but they did finish the season strong. And it's that kind of momentum that I think they're hoping to build into this year. But I think the 3A Greater St. Helens as a whole will be much more competitive this year. I think, you can't discount Kelso. They're a playoff team almost every year. They have a first-year coach in Darren Gardner, but he's been there almost 20 years. So they know what's going on down up there in Kelso. Mountain View second-year coach with Sean McDonald. Again, he had to come in kind of cold and kind of rebuild and work through a tough first year, but I think they'll be better. And even Heritage, I think they have some very talented returning players on them. And, Coach Kevin Peterson is like saying, hey, if we get off to a good start and get some confidence going, we get into the league and, win some games, we can get in there. They get 3 spots to the playoffs this year. So it opens up for a very interesting league season in the 3A GSHL.
Well, and it makes it to where every game is crucial. If you're, say none of these teams kind of runs away with it, you're talking one game could make the difference between having your season end on week 9 and then going on to week 10.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of years back to back where there was a tiebreaker in that league. Yeah. And they didn't have one last year. We could be seeing one this year, especially with 3 spots in the playoffs.
All right. Topsy-turvy leagues. We always like that, and that's why we always like the 2A Greater St. Helens League. Definitely the most unpredictable league that has been around the last couple of years in Southwest Washington. It could be anybody's ball game, but Tim, who do you think is going to emerge in the 2A Greater St. Helens League?
All right, the 2A Greater St. Helens League, again, like you say, it's just a crazy, week to week, you can't be surprised by anything where you have a Hawkins team that went 1-6, but they lose by 3 points each to Richfield and Woodland, who ended up playing for the league title in week 9. There was just all the way through the season. There were games like that where tough, close games. The drawback when you have league parity is that whereas like in the 4A where you had Camas and Skyview last year, where they were so much better than the other 2 teams, well, that kind of meant that they could make a deep playoff run. They were really good statewide. And when you have a league that's compressed and very competitive, when they move out of the league, sometimes it doesn't work out very well. Last year in the Week 10 playoffs, the 2A GSHL went 0-5. And even in the first 2 weeks in non-league play, the league didn't do particularly well either. So hopefully, there's still parity, but everyone's getting a little bit stronger and they'll be more competitive moving out into the playoff spot. 3 spots to the playoffs this year, guaranteed. The 4th team's got to play sort of a mini game to get into that 4th spot. A lot of good teams, a lot of teams with looking to make improvements, a lot of teams with question marks. But at the end of the day, Richfield's been knocking on the door the last couple of years, and I think it's something that's really kind of bugged them. And I think the Spudders bring back first team all league quarterback. Anytime you bring back first team all league, you're going to be in a good position. They're planning to run a different kind of offensive set instead of running the spread. They're going to bring kind of a wing set, but Coach Scott Rice said that doesn't really mean they're not going to pass anymore or any less. They're just running the ball out of a different formation that they think they'll have more success with, that will open up more opportunities in the passing game. So I think with the players they got coming back, especially in the key spots, especially at quarterback, and also a strong line, I'm going with the Spudders to take the league title.
In a nod to Lee Corso, who wrapped up his excellent career analyzing college football this past Saturday, I'm going to go not so fast, my friend. I'm picking Washougal to win.
Wow, all right.
I'm picking Washougal because, number one, no team was playing as well in the, except for maybe Woodland. Washougal ended last year's league season on a 4-game win streak. They have, out of 22 starting positions, offense and defense, they have seniors in 20 of those positions. It's sort of a trend this year in the 2A Greater St. Helens League. A lot of teams are embracing the kind of straight ahead, run the ball mentality. That's what Washougal did so well last year, and they're going to do it again this year. They have a trio back there: Royce Jones, Hunter Miller, and DeAndre Goodell, all experienced in that position. The only place they don't really have a lot of varsity experience is at quarterback with they have a junior, Trip Leifson, who is coming up from JV, but he's surrounded by seniors. You have returning all league players like Travis Lumberg and Parker Cherry. I just think that Washougal, they took about half of last season to sort of figure themselves out. And when I went and talked to Coach Dave Hajek, he said, yeah, the part of that was on me. We kind of had a game plan that was sort of modeled after the previous year's team, where you had a almost 3,000-yard quarterback in Holden B. We didn't really have that last year, and it took us about half the year before we figured it out and just sort of started running the ball and having some success that way. Now, the one thing I will say with Washougal is their schedule is very front heavy. They play Woodland early in the league season. They play Ridgefield early in the league season. So I think if they can go 2-1 in the first 3 games of the 2A Greater St. Helens League season, I think they roll through the end of the year and win the 2A GSHL title.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a year when the league champion probably has a loss.
Mm-hmm.
And last year the league went, Woodland was 7-0 and Ridgefield was 6-1, and then I think it was Washougal at 5-2 and Mark Morris at 4-3, River at 3-4, Ari Long at 2-5, Hawkinson at 1-6, and Woodland at 0-7. This year, I think there's going to be just teams beating up on teams, and you might have the league champion with 1 loss, and then teams with 2 losses and 3 just sort of bunched together. Definitely Washougal brings back a lot of experience, a lot of senior leadership on that team. But you also can't discount the Woodland Beavers, the 2-time defending league champions, and they're going to win the game with tough defense, and doing enough on offense, and then Mark Morris brings back an entire offensive line, and they've got some very interesting, exciting skill players to mix in with that. The second year with Mike Peck under there. Those teams come to mind, and then really, like I said, I think River and Bay and Ari Long and Hawkinson are all going to be better, and can go in there and throw a monkey wrench into anyone's season, and I think anyone in the league is in range of a playoff spot. So. I think it's going to be this might be a one where neither one of us is right at the end of the year.
Well, multiple coaches in the 2A Greater St. Helens League pointed out this one interesting fact about heading into this season is, in recent years, you've always had one guy who everyone kind of looked to as saying he is by far and away the best player in the league. That was Holden B for a couple of years when he was quarterbacking Washougal, and then the last couple of years it's been Elijah Anderson. We always knew that there was this one superstar who was going to kind of have a lot to say with how his team ended up faring. There really isn't that player in the 2A GSHL this year. Certainly that player could emerge. I think by week 6 or week 7, we could be talking about a kid that, maybe was under our radar and has kind of gone on to become a runaway league MVP. But right now, here ahead of week 1, we don't know who that is.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes the season interesting. You kind of want to see who steps up, who takes that step. And that was kind of like a theme of our preview stories, is this idea of players making a leap forward in the offseason. And sometimes Kids can look good in spring practice. They can look good at camps. They can look good in 7-on-7s. But until, Friday, week 1 comes stepping on and you're going up against live action, that's when you really get to see who's ready to play, who's ready to step up, who's ready to, make an impact. And so I think the competitiveness of the two-way Greater St. Helens League and also this sort of wild card of like who's going to be the stud players in the league, it's going to make things interesting down there.
Yeah, and it's always great that the 2A GSHL, they get right into league play. Week 3 matters in the league standings, whereas some of these other leagues, you get half of the season to kind of figure out who you are, and then it all comes down to the stretch run. 3 weeks from Friday, we're going to have games that count in the league contest, so there's not a lot of dress rehearsal time for any of those teams in the 2A GSHL.
Right, and like you mentioned earlier, some of those games are going to be key games against potential playoff teams early in the season.
Well, don't Woodland and Washougal go week 3?
I think so.
Yeah.
Week 4. Yeah, maybe week 3.
Yeah, but anyway, it's right out of the gate. All right, let's wrap it up with the 1A Trico League, and obviously, I think there's been one program that has been on a rapid ascent, and another program that has been kind of the year after year stalwart. Obviously, we're talking about Seton Catholic and La Center. Who do you think is going to end up triumphing after those two teams clash on Halloween in week 9, possibly for the league title?
Right. Yeah, again, both of these teams made, like the 4A, we had one team, La Center, made it to the quarterfinals, and then Seton made it to the championship game. Both had heavy losses through graduation, so they got to fill a lot of holes. But yeah, it was kind of like you say, it's like Seton, they've been kind of, been able to ascend, and a lot of that ascension that core was that senior group that allowed them to ascend. Now they've got to rely on the next sort of class of kids to come in and fill hole. They still have standout quarterback in Colton Gesser leading the way and directing the offense coming back there. La Center, every year they find people to go out there and play. I saw them at their jamboree last Friday. They looked pretty good in the jamboree. But I think at the end of the day, you can't go against a team that played for the state championship. And I think if like La Center was bringing back like a core of their starters, then you can go, all right, I think this is La Center's year to bounce back into the league title spot. But since they both have sort of issues and they're trying to fill some gaps, I think right now it's still Seton's league to win until La Center comes and knock them off.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to pick against a team that played for the state championship and brings that quarterback, a quarterback that's going to be a 4-year varsity starter. So, yeah, I see why Seton is the safe pick for winning the Trico, but it's just hard for me to go against La Center just because they've been so consistent over the years. It's like, talk about a team that just reloads, and that's sometimes hard to do at the 1A level when you have maybe smaller roster sizes, but that's never been a problem out at La Center. They always get 60 to 70 kids out, and with that, you get kids that grow into and are ready to take the reins when their number is called. And this year, I'm looking at their quarterback, Nate Rimbus, who I think is going to turn some heads with what he's able to do. You have wide receivers like Johnny Linsroth, or then a lineman. They always have good linemen up at La Center. Landon Randall is a standout. So, yeah, I think we always talk about teams that, we may not know who the star players are going into the year in all cases, but we'll figure it out as players kind of grow into that role. And I think La Center is a perfect case for, we're going to be talking about kids week 6, week 7 that maybe we would say, he's a nice player, but interesting to watch. But then and last half of the season, we're really going to know who they are.
Yeah, Nate Rimbus brings a different dynamic for La Center than they've had the last couple of years. So 2 years ago, they had a starting quarterback, Garrett Manu was the starting quarterback. He got hurt. So then Houston Coyle's got to come in and fill the gap. He was a receiver, and he filled out and was the quarterback the rest of the season. And then last year, Wyatt Iceland was the center the year before. He comes out, he's playing. So they haven't really had like somebody who was a quarterback who's like got the quarterback lineage. That's what Nate Rimbus brings this year to that program. And he looked really good in the jamboree. And that's a wild card in there, because you always know that John Lambert's going to have the line and the running game working for them. If they can get, teams to respect the pass as well, it's just going to open things up for them. So it still looks like Seton in the center, week 9. We're getting something to look forward to. Down the league, Kalama, they always find a way, and they've got players. They got some really young players last year who, were growing into themselves and now are coming back in as juniors. So they've got some weapons there. Kingsway Christian they're kind of growing. Remember a few years ago, they didn't have a varsity program, and so then Dale Rule came in, and he's trying to build that back up. And they're, again, they also have an experienced quarterback for them as well, and so I think they're also going to be better. And then Castle Rock is always going to be Castle. They're always going to be in there, going to be in the mix. So I think those 5 teams. We don't know how many teams are going to the playoffs from the Trico right now. Last year, I believe it was 4. Matt Cook, the athletic director of the center, told me that it's still going to be a 12-team state tournament bracket. So the week 10 is going to be 24 teams. They don't know if they're getting 3 or if they're getting 4 going into that, and that won't be sort of settled out until probably like week 3 or something like that. So, again, I still think the center, Seton, they're the ones battling for the league title. The other teams are in there trying to fight for other playoff spots, and maybe jump up and knock off one of the big boys one of these weeks.
Well, I think the fact that Le Center and Seton Catholic play at the end of the league season this year, I think that works in Le Center's favor because of what we said, so many new players trying to, grow into their roles. I think they'll have a lot of those kind of early season kinks hopefully figured out by the time when all the chips are down on Halloween. But same thing for Seton Catholic. I'm really interested to see kind of how their linemen work. I think they have a couple of standouts, and Alex Dayoub and Jamarcus Robinson. Anytime you have size on the line in 1A, that gives you a distinct advantage over your opponents, which tend to maybe not have that level of size in the trenches. But Seton kind of has always had that, along with the offense that really allows them to get the ball to their playmakers. The thing is, just so many of those playmakers were seniors last year.
Right, and I think if you look back 2 years ago when Le Center won the league title, they had to rally back to beat Seton to earn that title. They're the ones who had the big offensive line, and Seton was, younger and growing into building that line, and they were able to match up in that game 2 seasons ago. Last year, they kind of either evened that out or even had the edge in the offensive line. And this year, I think they're even stronger. But like you said earlier, the center, they always got the guys up front to match up. So. Like we said earlier, that's where you build good teams, is up front. If you got good players up front and you have success up front, it opens up a wealth of opportunities, running lanes, passing opportunities, and I think both these teams are well stocked in that category.
Well, and 2 years ago, Le Center had to rally to win. Last year, in the rain and the mud out in Le Center, Seton had to rally after falling into an early hole. This year, it's going to be a Freaky Friday on Halloween. It could be fun, but we have a lot of football to look forward to before that. But it all starts with predictions, and save these clips and let us know how wrong we are.
Yeah, we don't. One interesting thing about week 1, so Seton Catholics, they get to play like 6 home games this year. Mm-hmm. One of their home games, week 1, they're going to play at Doc Harris Stadium on this Friday. So I texted Seton coach. I was like, "What's the story with that? Why are you guys playing at Doc?" And he's like, "Well, we're expecting that River's going to send a lot of folks, and so we want to be able to have a large more seating, which we appreciate in covering those games, because I've been on the sideline, the visiting sideline, like 2 years ago with Le Center, where it's like they have this very little bleacher on the visiting sideline at Seton, and then there's just people just lining the sidelines all the way down, either with camping chairs or just standing, and it can get kind of harried and hectic. So I don't know if that week 9, whether they'll find another site than Seton's home field to accommodate more people or not. I know Camas is actually, I think they're home week 9. I think they play Skyview week 9, so I don't know if that'll be an option or not. But it was interesting to see that it was Seton's home field before they built their home field, Doc Harris, and so it was kind of like last year during the playoffs was kind of like going home to Doc kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see if they're while it can be like very congested, it also kind of makes it kind of a cool environment too, as well, with all those people lining on the sidelines. So yeah, we'll see what they decide to do with that, but.
All right. Well, Friday nights, football Fridays are here. And that's part of the fun. It won't be long before we're going to have to bundle up. So enjoy the warm weather and the warm evenings while we had it, but mostly just enjoy being out at a football game.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching last week's podcast with Megan, and she said something that was like, where she said that there's always 4 seasons in the school year. And I was like, well, that's what I always say. So I don't know if that she stole that from me or we're just in sync. But yeah, so there's the fall sports season, there's the winter sports season, there's the spring sports season, and then there's football season, which just happens to coincide with the fall season. So that's kind of how we look at it. It's like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, volleyball, soccer, cross country, all those other sports. But Friday night, it's all for football, and it makes for an exciting. It's something to always look forward to. It's not just the game, it's the event. It's the students in the stands, the band playing, cheerleaders, big crowd. I think that's what we all enjoy Friday nights for.
Well, be sure to follow us on 360preps.com, Instagram. I'm on TikTok now, believe it or not, with some of the cringiest posts and dad jokes that you can imagine, at Cole_M Rice. I'll be giving some rapid reactions after the game that I'm covering, but we're just glad to be back at it. So let's have a great 2025 season.